guys, Ariel over here at Nyth, where it is a gorgeous fall day, and I want to talk for just a minute today about being prepared. I'm not really a prepper. If you're familiar with that term, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is more of a normal, everyday, like, stuff just goes wrong. That's part of life. If you've been alive for more than a few years, you've probably encountered this. Whether it's little personal things, like, you get a flat tire on your car, or more like localized things like where my one sister lives. They just had some very severe flooding in their little town. A rainstorm got stuck there and dropped like 13 inches. The next town over was fine. Or if I was thinking about this partly because there are much larger areas that are being affected right now by hurricanes. Now, somebody who I think was probably not from this country had asked me if I'm okay with the hurricanes making landfall. Yes, I'm about 2,000 miles away from the coast where hurricane is touching down, so I am just fine here. That does not affect me. But it was making me think about how so many people I've encountered in life are just not prepared for anything to ever go wrong. And again, I'm not talking about like a end of the world, nuclear holocaust, Armageddon, any of that stuff. I'm just meaning like every day stuff just goes wrong. That happens. And just being prepared to deal with that, whether it's having a little bit of savings so you're prepared for something to go wrong financially and not being right on a razor thin edge there, and just kind of in all aspects of life. But especially if you're in a place that is prone to any kind of natural disaster like a hurricane or flooding, or wildfires are not so easy necessarily to stay in place, so that would be in a little bit of a different category. Or just things just happen, guys. Don't wait till the last second. Don't be one of those people that's out there racing to the grocery store to buy canned milk and bottled water and loaves of bread because the hurricane is touching down next to you and you've got nothing. Just don't wait for that. Why put yourself in that position? Be prepared so you can take care of yourself and maybe help somebody else out. That doesn't take that much effort. I obviously, if this is your first video here, live in a tiny house. I have about 170 square feet. There may be people with less space than me, I realize that, but in America anyway, there's not a lot of people living in a smaller space. And I am perfectly capable of doing this here. So I don't think saying, oh, well, I don't have space to be prepared for things. That's not a very valid argument in my opinion. But if just whatever is going on in life, there's some basic things. We all need to be able to drink. We all need to be able to eat eventually. You can certainly go for some number of days without food and you won't die. It just won't be very enjoyable for most people. So you need to have water, a way to eat. If you live somewhere where it's cold, having a way to heat would be pretty vital pretty quick, or at least warm clothes or some way to stay warm. And probably a little less vital, but having light to see what you're doing and all that is somewhat essential. Oh, and then being able to poop. That is also important. If you have power out caused by whatever kind of thing, like a hurricane or just a malfunction in a power plant or whatever could go on, and you rely on electricity to pump water to flush toilets, that would be a lot of America. The human body's going to keep right on working. Power goes out and you are still going to need to pee and poop. And having a way to do that without being unsanitary and plugging up your whole toilet and making your entire house smell like a sewage factory, those would all be pretty important things. Now, I think this is pretty simple to do, and it's just the way I live my life every single day. So if something happens, I am fine here. So I want to take you around and just show you a few of the things I do to just always be prepared for just things that happen here where I live. Not right today, but we get a lot of snow, so avalanches happen. They close the only roads into the area. At times grocery stores and stuff would not be able to restock. Most grocery stores in the country stock for only about 1 day worth of groceries. They have stuff coming into the store every single night, so if anything interrupts that, 1 day later they're going to be mostly out of food to sell you. So and we've all seen this. If you watch the news or you have a radio or you read the paper, you know that what happens when there's a a disaster coming through like that, there's a blizzard coming, there's a hurricane coming, everyone rushes to the store and they want to buy generators and they want to buy candles and they want to buy bread and milk and eggs, and it's like you can be prepared so that when a disaster's coming, you can just sit back and relax and maybe help a neighbor or friend or family member out who was less thoughtful and preparing than you. So let's just take a look around at some of the basic things that I just always have going on in my life. So when a accident or disaster happens, which are often unexpected, sometimes with the weather-related things you have a little bit of warning, but kind of by definition, some of those things are just unexpected. So I just want to be ready all the time so that I don't become a burden to other people being stranded somewhere with no drinking water, where somebody's going to have to come rescue me on a helicopter or a boat or whatever, which may or may not happen. But I don't want to be an inconvenience to others. I want to be able to the best of my ability, take care of my own stuff and be able to help somebody else out who's less prepared. Okay, so other than air to breathe, which will be the obviously most essential thing, but not a particularly easy thing to store, and hopefully not something that would normally be lost in any kind of most normal natural disasters, water is going to be the first really important thing that you need. A human can only live about 3 days without water. So right now, when I turn on my sink, I have water that's pumped out of my internal tank that I fill with water from a neighboring well. Now, if the power was down, that well pump that I get my water from does run off of grid power. So I would have water for, if it was a short emergency, I only fill this tank every couple weeks. So if it was just down for an hour or even a few days, as long as I wasn't right on empty on my tank in the first place, that would work just fine and I would be good. But if you had no way to get water out of a well, and you might be on a well or on city water that's going to go down, instantly if there's a power outage because of a hurricane or tornado or blizzard or whatever the case is, ice storm. I do have a creek nearby. It's just down the hill from my house. There's running water there, and I can easily it takes some more manual labor, but I can walk down the hill, scoop up a bucket of water and bring it up here. I don't want to drink that because that's an open water source without some kind of treatment. So there's a couple ways to treat it. One would be to put it in some kind of pot, boil it. Now again, if you have an electric stove, you're in a microwave, and that's your only ways of heating things. If there's no power, you're not going to have a good way to heat water. I do have a propane stove. The propane I buy lasts me for like 2 years at a time. So realistically, again, unless it was right on empty when something happened and I was unable to get propane, I would be able to heat it on my propane stove. Or obviously, I'm not going to move the camera, but you probably know I have a wood stove, and at any time of year I've got wood. I live in the woods. I can always go get more. I could heat water that way. You don't always want to have to heat water though, because especially if it's hot and in the summer, you don't want to drink it hot necessarily, and you don't want to wait for it to cool down. So this is what I use for backpacking, and it's great for any kind of emergency where you may need to filter water to make it safe to drink, because waterborne illnesses can be a big deal, depending what you live around, who's doing what near your water and putting what in your water, and what wildlife are pooping in the water and all that. There are some nasty bacteria you can get, and if you're already having some kind of disaster going on, the last thing you want to do is have diarrhea and feel crummy. This works. I've got a few sizes of bags. Again, I use this for backpacking all the time. I've been using it for years. This one's brand new, so it's a little stiff, this bag, because eventually they wear out over time, but they're flexible. The easiest way to get it to inflate is just blow it up like that, and then you can either fill this by holding it under like a little trickle of water in a stream, or dunking it completely in something and waiting till it fills, whatever. And once it's full of water, you just screw this on, and then you can either drink directly, out of that nozzle, or you can get a glass or a pot or whatever and squeeze this through. It'll come, the filtered water will come running out here, and you'll have clean, safe drinking water. This is a Sawyer Mini. I'll link this stuff down below if you guys are interested, but again, I've been using this for many years. They make a little bigger one. It's a little bulkier to carry for backpacking, which is why I carry the mini. But if you were just going to have it for around the house use, the water flow is greater through it just because it's a bigger size, so that might not be a bad thing. And then of course you could have a big Berkey filter and stuff like that, which would be great. That would just take up a lot of space that I don't necessarily have. And because I have really good drinking water the rest of the time, I would only have that for emergencies. So the fact that I already have this for backpacking works well. So I've got multiple ways to get water. Oh, and then I didn't go grab one, but there's another little thing called a life straw that's probably about the size of this knife. It's just a straw with a filter built into it, kind of like this, and you could simply dunk it in any, you know, body of water or pot of water you've scooped up and suck through that. I like to have that just in case I need something. Like I keep one in my car just in case I get stranded somewhere or something, but this is a little faster and a little easier because there's no real way to squeeze water through that. So you'd have to be like bent down on a riverbank or whatever drinking, or have a container of some kind to scoop it up in and stick it in to drink. And I like the flexibility of being able to bag this, squeeze it through, and store clean water in my water bottle or glass or whatever I want to put it in. So think about, do you have a way to get water? Is there some open water source near you? Or are you do you have a hand well pump? Is there a pond? Is there a stream? Is there a spring? And if so, if you got to go get water from one of those and not from your city treated water system, or rainwater, that's another one. If you live somewhere it rains more than my place, and so on. But you want to be sure water's pretty important. Do you have a way to drink, have drinking water? Or if nothing else, you know, if bottled water is your choice, that wouldn't be my first choice. Go have a case and just have it so that when a hurricane's coming through, you're not the one running to the grocery store trying to get the last bottle of bottled water before they're all sold out because there's no trucks coming in. So just be prepared to have a way to drink, because that will be the first important thing. Next after water, food is probably going to be your biggest thing. This is my pantry door right across from my sink. This is where the majority of my food gets stored, and even in my tiny house I have lots of room for lots of things. Now, you may not be canning your own. That's, you know, applesauce, spaghetti sauce, pickles, sweet pickles, pickled beets, dried herbs, some wild berry juices, pickled carrots, and so on down through some oats and flours and stuff. So, and all my other spices on the door, and I have more food storage. Over here, I keep a lot of bags of stuff in here. I use some gluten-free flours for things, and things like flax seeds and dried fruits and some of these more bagged things. I've got 2 drawers full of storage here, nuts, coconut, all of that. Over here are my lovely new kitchen cabinets. And up here on this top shelf, I have things like mackerel and canned beans and coconut milk and, you know, just a few of this sardines, which I like. Few more of those things, and this cupboard again, the top there, I've got lentils, honey, oats, rices, just all that kind of stuff. And look at my pretty pink and purple and yellow potatoes on the counter. Anyway, it's certainly easy or very doable to store plenty of food, even if you're in a very small space. Again, my house is about 170 square feet. This is my backup pantry up here. Right now it mostly has some empty bottles. I save This is my backup pantry up here. Right now it has mostly empty bottles because I have so far had room to put my canned stuff in my bigger pantry, and I save all those little bottles for doing my own tinctures and drying herbs and stuff. But you know, even in my small space, I am very much able to have plenty of food here. If you locked me in my house, or there was no access to a grocery store, and even if my power went out, I mean, I'm on solar anyway, so that would take some other things going wrong. But, you know, I would be able to cook and eat for months before I even got hungry. I just would, you know, not have things like fresh eggs anymore, and that certainly would not kill me. Another thing to think about, not essential to life like water and food, but very handy, and sometimes could be involved with safety if you are trying to do things in the dark and hurt yourself, is a way to see. Now again, I am off-grid in the first place, so everything would have to break, well, I guess not everything, something would have to break with my power system, and then my batteries would have to drain, which would take about 10 days before I even didn't have power here, but if you're on the grid, and so just leaving that aside, if something takes out the power, high winds, ice storm, whatever it is, are you going to have a way to see around? Especially, you know, if it's winter, that can be challenging because there's so many more hours of dark. So I have multiple options. In addition to my, you know, wired in lighting, I have quite a few different kinds of lamps. All three of these are different kinds of oil lamps. This one obviously has a handle, so I could carry it outside if I needed. And a gallon of lamp oil lasts me for most of a year, just lighting my little place. This is very, very simple. This one's an antique. I think it was my grandparents, but very simple oil lamp, provides a good bit of light. This is an Aladdin lamp, which is a slightly different style of oil lamp. I'm not going to go into detail about how they work. If you're not familiar with them, I'll probably do a video just on that at some point, but much, much brighter light. You can easily see this lights the whole house up well enough to read at night. So I have multiple ways to, use oil lamps. Candles can be another one. I use my oil lamps a lot of the time anyway. I just like the light in the evening for the warmer tones, and I try not to use LEDs a whole lot because of their effects on your brain. But even if you don't use those regularly, candles, I'm not a fan of open candles. They're easy, especially if you have pets or kids or anybody who's a little more careless or clumsy in the house. Open candles can get knocked over and start fires. That could be a hazard. But this is a sturdy glass jar, tall candle. These just come from like the dollar store. They make these with all the little like Catholic saints on them and such, but most dollar stores have them as well with just a plain glass. Not that you couldn't have a picture on, I just like the plain glass. And they'll burn for quite a few hours. Let's see. That sticker doesn't. I might have peeled off the sticker that had the hour rate. Anyway, this will give you light for quite a few hours, and you can just have a few of these around your house, and as long as you've got a match or a lighter or anything to light it up, you can have light there. Then I also have a couple little flashlights. Again, this is something where I keep one in every, it's not going to show up very well here in the daylight, one in each of, one in the vehicle, one in my house, and whatever, and it's just got a little battery. I've got rechargeable AA batteries that I use for this. But this one's adjustable, so I really like it. It can make a kind of a spotlight or a really wide beam, and I mostly use this if I hear something outside at night with all my critters and I want to see what's there. I can spot just what's going on, or see what I'm doing to work. But if you're actually trying to do something like outside, like I use this all the time when I start my generator in the winter, when I go get an armload of firewood, whatever. You want your hands free, and if you're holding a flashlight or holding a lamp or carrying a candle or whatever the case may be, that occupies one of your hands, and you often need both hands free. So headlamps are great. I've owned quite a few over the years because I use them again for backpacking, for when I may need to see out there. Again, they take batteries. There's quite a few different styles, but most have some way that this one unscrews in the back. A lot of them have little clips so the back pops off, and they take 1 to 3 batteries. I have rechargeable batteries for that, and they work for a long, long time. Again, it's probably not going to show up very well here, but the advantage of a headlamp is that you can wear it there, which leaves both hands free for whatever you're doing. So I use these all the time in the winter, every time I got to run outside for a minute and I want to see what I'm doing. But even just having 1 or 2 of those around your house would certainly let you in an emergency, and they're super compact, and there's quite a few different models out there, but they're fairly inexpensive, 10 to 20 bucks depending what all features you want it to have. Really easy way to be sure you can see what you're doing, so you don't compound some disaster by tripping and falling down the stairs and breaking your leg or something. So do you have a way to light? And again, accidents and disasters just happen. This is part of life. So be prepared and plan ahead so that you can take care of yourself when whatever happens, because these things happen. The last one that is kind of essential for human beings is being able to use the bathroom. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail here because I have quite a few videos discussing my toilet setup and my thoughts on it, but this is a composting toilet, and there are many variations, including what I will probably have in the future, which is a bucket version, which is very, very inexpensive and allows you to safely and unodoriferously manage your human waste, because if you rely on being able to flush things down a toilet, that requires water and usually in most settings power to pump the water. And just because the power goes out doesn't mean your body is going to quit needing to take a dump. So think about what you're going to do with that kind of thing if you have some kind of extended power outage. Now, if you just have a very short one, if you have access to plenty of water and have some like extra buckets of water, you probably know you can just pour the water into the toilet. Not this one. This one doesn't take water, but you can just pour water into a toilet and it will flush as long as you have water to add to it. But if you only have a little bit of room to store water, that may not be a very efficient use of it because that takes quite a few gallons, which you might need for drinking or cooking. Oh yeah, and just so you don't lose your mind, if you would be in some kind of situation where this kind of thing would go on for a long term, make sure you got something to do other than filtering your drinking water and making food, like read a book or have some card games or board games or, something that does not need a game console and a powered smartphone and, something to do with your brain so that you don't go insane. So again, hopefully that just gives you guys some ideas. If you've never thought about this stuff, I'm thankful to have grown up in a family and a community where this stuff was kind of second nature. Again, none of these are things that I do specifically because I'm terrified of some end of the world disaster coming upon me, but this is just how I live life. Just like I don't drive my car on empty all the time. I buy toilet paper before I'm down to my last roll. This is all in that same category. Just I want to have the things I need when I need them, and I don't want to be the one who's stuck and stranded and all of a sudden in some disastrous or unsafe or potentially deadly situation because I never stopped to think about these things. So if this is the first time you've ever thought about any of this, you could be like, oh my, that's overwhelming, but if you have a bucket and some sawdust, 5-gallon buckets can often be had for free from a grocery store. Like restaurants, they get a lot of food in them and they usually have to dispose of extra buckets. Sawdust can usually be had from free from cabinet shops and stuff. They just throw it away anyway. It often goes in dumpsters. I'm trying to think, what a few dollars at a dollar store would get you some candles, and 10 or 12 bucks would get you a headlamp. You'd have light, and I think these might have got this last one on sale, but off the top of my head, I think these are like 16 bucks. You'd be able to filter up to 10,000 gallons of water. And then, what else did I talk about? Light, bathroom needs, and food. Again, you wouldn't have to I keep a well-stocked pantry all the time because I love to cook and I want to have food around. But even if you've got nothing else, go get some, and make sure if you've got cans, you have a can opener, but, some cans of sardines are very nutrient dense. You can get a few canned veggies and canned fruits. Have something so that you're not the unprepared one who is all of a sudden stranded when, and I don't even think of them as disasters really. I realize some of them are, but to me I just think of things going wrong as part of life. This just happens. That's how life goes. Things go wrong, and usually when you're not expecting it. So if you're just prepared, then you and the people you care about, whatever, aren't going to be the ones stuck on, a rooftop dying of thirst because you have not got any way to drink water and so on. So anyway, that's just some thoughts. That's a look at what I do, and for $30, $40 if you've got none of this stuff in the first place, and I hope you're not in that boat because hopefully a lot of you have already thought about some of these things and are a little bit prepared for life. But even if you never have, and this is the first time you've ever thought about it, for just a few dollars, you can at least be prepared to just be comfortable. Oh, and then I've mentioned heating as well, and I didn't really do a video on that. I got lots of videos on my wood stove. I heat with wood. I also have backup propane heat. If nothing else, plenty of people don't live in an area as cold as me. Have some warm clothes, get a wool blanket. They're usually inexpensive from like an army surplus store, or go down to the thrift store and get some extra blankets. There's always blankets at every thrift store I've ever been in for a few dollars. But have a couple extra blankets, just something so you could stay warm and not die of hypothermia. So Or many of you may live somewhere where heat is a bigger issue, and then having water is going to be really important to help your body with its own cooling systems, because if there's no power, you're not going to have air conditioning. So anyway, hopefully that just gives you some thoughts and tips and ideas. Any of this stuff that I've talked about, I'll pretty much try to link below in case you're curious about that, but you can get different brands and different whatever, and go to thrift stores and get used gear. I mean, I like buying things used so nobody has to make them new. And all that stuff, but just hopefully you're encouraged to, if you never have thought about this, especially to be prepared for life to happen. Thanks for watching, folks. If you're interested in more info on my off-grid tiny house life, check out some of my other videos here. And if you like what you're seeing, click the little picture of my house to subscribe, and then hit the little bell so YouTube actually notifies you every time there's a new video available. See y'all next time.